At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, this is what we are faced with, and this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
What is up, ADOS and our allies? Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the Central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Friends of ADOS TV channel, bringing you those ADOS hot topics and making the case for reparations and making the case for Democratic down ballot strategy. Yes, family. I'm still on my square. What? We are preparing and gearing up for 2022 to replace the lames in Congress that are ignoring the cries of the ADOS blood, spilling in the streets, dying from COVID disproportionately, dying from government-sanctioned executions disproportionately, dying from preschool to prison pipeline disproportionately. Oh yeah, this is my square, and it looks like we are winning, family. What? This race is in an absolute dead heat. Everybody was watching the moves of the Democratic down ballot strategy. White folks was watching. Latin folks was watching. Asian folks been watching. Lots of folks on that Democratic down ballot. And it's not what the corporate news channels, the corporate media has been prescribing as a definite for Joe Biden, Jim Crow Joe. Oh no, baby. Lots of us are upset that he thought he could literally run on Trump the boogeyman and get our votes. No reparations, no tangibles, no black agenda. But they always want the ADOS to show up and save the day, right, family? Absolutely, that's what they want from us. For us to come in and save the day with those votes. Well, we had something for them, right? We had something for them at the top of that ticket. No reparations, no tangibles, no vote. Jim Crow, segregationist Joe, and Callie's top cop, by her own admission, Kamala the Chameleon. So you see, not just black folks, not just the ADOS are upset that the platform for the Democrats was we must get the Republicans out of office. Trump is a train wreck. This goes to show you how much of a train wreck the Democratic Party is right now, family. The fact that this man could be in the height of a pandemic and be neck and neck with the Democrats is proof that the party is imploding and coming apart at the seams, and the people all over the country are rising up against the DNC, who has traded us for the top 1%, traded us for the oligarchs and the billionaires. How dare you steal 2 primaries? Oh, yes, you did. And now y'all want to sit up here and act like you're not weaponizing the pandemic to steal the entire election while painting the Republicans, which they still are Republicans, out to be oppressive and suppressive of our votes. Haven't the Democrats done the same thing? Haven't they done the same thing this election cycle? While they sit up here and try to play innocent, throwing rocks and hiding their hands. They are in the midst of trying to steal this election under the auspice of this COVID, having folks mail their ballots in. And why in the world are they just now counting ballots that's been flowing in, for as long as early voting has been open? They just now counting the ballots. Why is it out here in California, our polls closed an hour early? We closed and within 1 hour we're producing results. What about our mail-in ballots? Huh? Okay, nobody counting those? You see, and the East is still counting? And we on day, 2, 3 since the election? What's up? I got to say hello to my people in the live chat. Israel, I see you, Israel Hodges. Thank you for joining the live. Shannon McFall, thank you for joining the live. Decarius McLaren, thank you for joining the live. ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, I see you. Thank you so much for joining the live. LaFair, Ward, my apologies, my love. Who else? Adrian Taylor, I see you. And for those of you who have yet to chat with me over here, I am welcoming you to this amazing live experience. Yes, I see you, Tamara. I'm about to bring you up, my love. Just give me a second while I greet my audience. Family, we got a very, very special guest in the house today. Oh, my goodness. I know I'm jumping around, but she is on the East Coast time, so I'm not going to get real chatty because we're just blessed to have her as they're continuing to count votes. Let me bring her up. This is who you guys have come over here to see and to hear from. Y'all don't really care. What's up, Brenda Renee Smith? Thank you for joining live. Y'all don't really care about hearing from me. We want to hear from Georgia U.S. Senator Tamara Johnson-Shealey, right? Now, she's not senator yet, but I want to bring her in to talk about her success on that campaign trail. Okay? She had a beer bottle budget and managed to eke out over 104,000 votes to place 6th out of 21 candidates down in the GA. Introducing, what's up, Sky Brown? Thank you for joining the live. None other than Tamara Johnson-Shealey. Stand by, family.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening, and welcome to the live. Eric Brown, thank you for joining the live. I am just thrilled to have you for a little bit of time. The family is thrilled. Tansy and Taj Marie and Melanated Integrity and Eric Brown from New York City. The East Coast is in the building, family, for you. These are the people who love you, who supported you, who supported the Super PAC and enabled us to eke out a commercial in the 11th hour. We've been pushing, we've been praying, and just believing in you and your campaign. For those of you who are new to the show, Tamara and I go way back to last summer, prior to the inaugural conference. And I became an instant fan of this sisters. And she became an instant fan of mine. As a matter of fact, she is responsible for pushing me out the nest and pushing me onto the Friends of ADOS TV. She's encouraging. She's an inspiration to us all. Single mother. This is not her first rodeo. Let me take a breath and let her speak to you, family.
Hi, Angela. I can never come behind you with your introduction. Thank you for having me. Hello, good evening, my ADOS family. Hello, everybody. I am so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me tonight. I'm sorry that I'm not on camera, but it's late on the East Coast and I have a sick kid, so I'm mommy tonight, y'all. I'm mommy.
Honey, we will take you any way we can get you. We're just so grateful to have you on the live. What's up, Maurice Carlisle? Thank you for joining the live. Now, I want you to share with this family about how on a beer bottle budget, you managed to get to 6th place and they are still counting the votes. Last count, you were over 100K. Now you're over 104K. I mean, really, is it any possibility that you can knock Loeffler or Warnock out the box and be in the runoff?
At this late in the game, I don't believe so, but we are now at 105,216 votes. So this has been such a blessing. We're still 6 in the race. Doug Collins, Kelly Loeffler, Warnock, and even Matt Lieberman. They all had millions of dollars to run. So the top 4 had millions in their pocket. Matt had about $1.3 million, but everybody else had millions to run on. So the top 4 they had big money. So we couldn't have competed with that on a shoestring budget. But the person that was next in line, Miss Deborah Jackson, I believe for her to have placed in the top, I believe that because she was the first Democratic woman on the ballot, people chose her. She raised less than I did, but I believe that's how she was able to place as high as she did. But me being 6 in this race of 21, I feel very accomplished. I feel like we did what we could with what we had. We ran a very strong grassroots campaign. I'm proud of the numbers. We was running on fumes the entire time. So to have come in 6th place out of 21, I feel like we should be proud, and I am very proud of our efforts.
Oh my goodness, are we ever proud of you? Tell the family what it took for you, because I remember praying for you as you were traveling alone in a rented RV going into rural Georgia to talk to the people that did not have Wi-Fi. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have access to what we have access to. That's how poor they are, which is why we're fighting for reparations and a Black agenda in exchange for our vote. Anywho, tell us what it was like to meet the rural people, to go and meet with them, those that have been ignored. Talk to them.
It was an amazing experience. These people, most of the time, politicians don't even come that far, don't get down on the ground to that extent where you go into these remote areas where like you say, Angela, the choppy phone service, and that's scary enough. The Wi-Fi that was non-existent, and if they did, it was expensive. To go into these areas like Talbot County, for example, where there's no hospital and no grocery stores. So, I'm out here, and thank you for your prayers and those of you that prayed me along the way. I'm gonna tell you, there was one stretch of highway that I was on, and I tried, I didn't do things that weren't smart. Like I didn't travel those back roads at night. I always traveled early enough in the day, so whatever happened, I'd have plenty of daylight. I was very mindful of my surroundings. I didn't tell the rental RV, had the company's logo all over it. So they didn't know who I was. And I didn't tell people in the park who I was because I didn't know who they were. So I was very mindful of my safety out there. And I just thank you for, like I say, praying me along the way. There was, like I say, one stretch of highway that there was nothing for probably about 45 minutes, nothing out there but woods. And it was scary. And I had plenty of moments, but that was one that I vividly remember because it was so long. That stretch of highway was so long. And it was every time I saw a car that was coming the opposite way, I was like, whoo, there's one. I could literally count them because there was nothing back there for, So it was, but these are people that they live out there. They live in the country. They live in these rural areas and they need to be heard. They have voices, they have needs, they have concerns. And I went to those places and I know that, coming there, and these people, a lot of them are family, and they're family and they're friends and they know each other. So talking to one person in this family, I might have got 5 or 6 votes because they told the rest of the family. So I was able to really make some serious, true connections because if I'm there, I'm going to connect, and it was genuine. They appreciated the fact that these were genuine connections. We have a lot of people that we have phone numbers and email addresses. And we have now a base that we did not have before as ADOS.
Wow, that is so impressive. So what can we do differently the next time? Because I mean, I pray you're going to be running in 2022. I know you're still in prayer about that, but I believe with this kind of success, we could literally, if we band together as the movement in all states, sling bricks for you, that we can actually get you a victory. What are your thoughts about that?
I can't do it the way I did it this time, and that I cannot get out here on the campaign trail and be begging for money. I can't get out here and wondering if I'm gonna be able to go, another week in this campaign or another month in this campaign. I can't mentally be. That was exhausting. Like you said, Angela, was not my first rodeo. I ran in 2014, 2016, and 2018, and now to come back and run a statewide race in 2020. This was a huge undertaking. Senate District 40 is 56 state districts in Georgia. So for me to now tackle the entire state with just fumes, like I said, we ran literally on fumes. I want to say we raised about $40,000. That was when Raphael raised $4 million alone. I think by August he had already had $4 million. Of course, I'm sure he had more than that towards the end. But I couldn't. I had a fraction of 1% of what it really takes to run a successful campaign. So I can't get back out here. So I am trusting God, on how I move in this next dimension. I want to run, and it's in my spirit to run again. So here's how this race is going to shape up. Right now, Kelly Loeffler and Raphael are projected winners in this race. They will square off from now until January the 5th, I believe, is election day. Don't quote me on that date, but the special election runoff will be very early January. And whoever wins this race will only serve for 2 years, because this is the conclusion of Johnny Isaacson 6-year term. So this, like Angela, like you're saying, in 2022, this same race has to be run again. So here's what I stayed off social media today and I'm really trying to, my brain is still just moving up because I've been running so hard for a whole year. I'm literally trying to settle myself, and I'm not quite there. But today I did kind of stay off social media. I peeked at it, but they're coming at me now with questions about, am I going to support Warnock? That's the question on the table. Are you going to support Warnock? And I've only answered one person, and she sent me back this long dissertation now about why. So my answer to her was, if Warnock is going to carry the agenda, the reparations agenda for ADOS, for American Descendants of Slavery, that it would be the only way that I will support him. If he does not carry this mantle, if he does not take this baton and run with it, absolutely not. And I will actively campaign against him.
Whoa, that is some power, sister. Yes. So basically, now they want to hear from you about Warnock. Is that because you're over 105,000?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you add up in this race, if you add up all the Republicans and if you add up all the Democrats, Republicans still have a significant lead in this race. So he needs he needs all of our votes that are Democrats. He can't afford to lose any of these votes, any of us that are Democrats. So in order for me to support him in his race, he would have to carry the agenda for reparations for American descendants of slavery. And I'm like I said, I'm not gonna, there's no other way. There's nothing else he could say. There's nothing else they could do to get my support if they don't carry our agenda, Angela.
I just love every bit of this. So see, for those in the ADOS movement that couldn't find it within them to support you in this race, you're still working on behalf of the ADOS with the candidate that's out front, weaponizing the votes that you conjured up with all of your energy and spiritual will and determination and your steadfastness. You are still fighting for the ADOS to make sure this Warnock runs our reparations down in Georgia. That is powerful, and we are eternally grateful. And for me, This is why we should all together in unison support you if you decide to run again. And I think what needs to happen is strategizing needs to happen now. We need to know how much money do you need. We need to know what your needs are. And since you run on this scale, you clearly must have an outline of what your needs are so you can run that to those of us in this movement who support you from the chest. And therefore, we can start planning now. Like I've been telling the people, I'm still on Democratic down ballot. If we can get people like Tamara Johnson-Shealey, who is full-chested about our reparations, in that Congress, 100 deep, imagine how much easier it would be for us to secure it. So my thing is, this victory, because it is a victory for someone who only had 40,000 going up. I mean, you were the David to this Goliath of a machine called the DNC. And I'm certain that you know how to get this done without requiring as much money as they throw out at him. And it probably isn't much more, but you need boots on the ground. You need men that can go out with you when you're going into the rural areas to get those votes. You have a lot of needs that I feel you need to quantify for the ADOS movement so we can talk with the people, the top brass in the movement, to start right now campaigning for you in 2022 and at least seeing what we're working with in terms of money. We've got the Equity Advocates PAC and we've got your site. And if we can, join and merge efforts, I am certain we can get you elected in 2022.
Yeah.
I've talked about it in my gut because of how hard you work on your own. Imagine if each of us worked as hard as you. Don't you believe that would be a shoo-in for you?
I do. I feel like what we were able to learn this time around, we'll definitely be able to build on it. And I do. I just know that what it will take from the ADOS family, we're going to have to be very committed. And I felt like, just Angela, just to kind of get some of this off my chest, I felt very abandoned in the midst of this. Like, I'm out here, y'all, and I'm doing this, and I'm not going to quit. We're going to ride this out. We're making headway. And then in the middle of it, I literally felt abandoned. I can't feel that way again with the movement. I can't. I'm going to have ADOS. I'm going to have ADOS to ride with me. We ride or die. We stay in this. I don't start something and don't finish. I was committed to finishing this race and finishing strong. And I ran hard. I sacrificed a lot to do it. I can be committed to doing it again, but I need ADOS this time to stick and stay the entirety of the campaign. We can't start and don't see it all the way through. And that's where I think I'm feeling like a little, like I say, I'm trying to get past it all. Bring myself down and settle myself. I'm still really tired, and Georgia's still counting, which is good because every vote counts, and it will have even more than what we already have. So once these numbers are solidified and we really have Georgia's done counting, and I can really take a look at, based on where the counties that I actually visited, looking at, how many numbers actually came from those counties where I wasn't able to go, where we had radio, how did those numbers fare? We'll be able to really take what we've done and compare it to where we actually landed with these numbers and really see the kind of impact we made and really look at, okay, well, this county, didn't stay there long enough. We didn't reach enough people. Okay, so this is a county that we have to target the next time around. We will have some very good data to move into this 2022 election, but I'm going to need ADOS to ride or die with me. Don't leave me out here. Don't leave me out here, because I can't. That was just too much this time around.
It was a whole lot, and I'm telling you, they say what doesn't kill you makes you strong, but we're going about this very differently. Eric Brown says, thank you, Tamara Johnson-Shealey. May the ancestors protect and bless you. Ashe-o. Let's see here. We've got some other great comments. Tansy says, whatever you need, just let the family know. We standing with you. Okay, that's what I mean. There's quite a few that are like me in the movement. And that's what we need to discern. We need to know from nuts to bolts what is going to be needed, because we can pull people in from all directions with a little more advanced notice about where we're headed. We'll know what kind of funding goals we need to reach for. We'll know how many soldiers you need. We know how many dialers you need. We know how many foot soldiers you need. And we can coalesce around that early enough to make sure you have what you need and put that in place. I'm not just about working within the ADOS movement. I've got friends over in the Urban Game Changers. I've got friends in BF1, B1, FBA. Like, it's time that we branch out and work with all the other grassroots to heavy lift for every candidate, especially that's running on the senatorial level, because the only way to get the reparations is to have senators and people in the House that are full-chested about our repair. We don't have that now. We have people who want to be paid to study our repair into perpetuity on a study that has no teeth in it currently. And they're resisting talking to the ADOS about those edits. So we've got a lot of work to do to replace the lanes between now and 2022. We don't get a break. We don't get a rest. It's time to continue to lean in. And I know we don't know who the president is yet, but that doesn't change the work at hand. I wanted to get your thoughts before I let you retire for the evening about the current stalemate that's happening between the Republican and Democratic parties. What do you think that's attributable to?
And you mean as far as this presidential election, Angela?
Yes.
I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. I don't care if it's Biden or Trump. I don't care. I really don't. I just want us to get, because neither one of them, you know, I was not excited, and none of us was excited about either one of them. So I want us to, you know, I want us to get our agenda to whoever will take it. I don't care who it is. I don't care. We're going to have a hard time either way we go.
Well, reparations is a bipartisan issue. So we must be willing to talk to both sides.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I feel like, well, I'll just jump in about my comments before I let you go. Basically, I believe that this is a byproduct of the wash, rinse, repeat of the Democratic Party on trying to make Trump a boogeyman over reparations and a Black agenda for the ADOS. Even though enough of us showed up, you know, more, I don't know how many showed up, actually. I don't really have that number, but I do know that Trump doubled his Black female support. The Black women went from 4 to 8% support of Trump, and the Black men went from 13 to 17%. And so what I know is that when you don't offer not just ADOS, they gave the middle finger to, you know, the progressives as well. When you don't offer real tangibles for in exchange for the vote, folks showing up, they're doing Democratic down ballot, they are voting for Trump, they're doing, and so that's why they're in a dead heat right now, as far as I'm concerned. You didn't come with a real platform to entice people to want to vote for you, because there's no way in the world this race should be in a dead heat with someone like Trump, who they claim has mishandled the pandemic. I've got my opinions about that whole thing and that whole debacle. But for me, when you don't offer the people any more than unseating Trump, this is a byproduct of that lack of an offer.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. So anyway, my dear, I'm not going to keep you. We're like at 6:29. And I just want to thank you so very, very much for coming on to the show. Get your rest, but let's really get together and talk about what the needs are. Email me so I can talk to the Equity Advocates PAC and talk to my comrades in this movement to find out if this is something we're willing to do, because it's going to have to be something we're willing to do for everyone running for the Senate race that we vet, right? Like, you've got to have the political magnitude and fortitude to run this race on that level. So we need to be in the process of vetting candidates like yourself. but you would be a definite. So my thing is, let us know when you settle down. Just give us what your needs are and let us meditate on whether or not we have the gumption to follow it all the way through without leaving you midstream. Okay, sister?
That is I will definitely do that. Once Georgia finishes counting these votes, then we'll have some solid numbers. Then I can look at what we actually, where our efforts were this time around. And then we'll be able to figure out what we're going to need moving forward. Because at this point, we don't know, and I'm going to take the time while they're counting to just kind of settle myself and pray.
Absolutely, Sis Star. Well, thank you so much for joining the live. We love you, love you, love you. And we'll talk again with you really, really soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you. Good night, family.
Okay, let me remove her. All right, family. Thank you guys, ADOS Truth, for joining the live. Who else is over here? Let me see. Who did I miss? Actually, Yale, thank you for joining the live from Periscope. Kunta, thank you for joining the live. ADOS Children, thank you guys for joining the live. And for those of you who haven't typed, thank you so much for joining the live. Well, at this stage, I want to play something for you and get into it because I still have some things on my chest when it comes to why Biden and Kamala are so wrong for the top of the ticket. And I want to play something for you that I recorded from Democracy Now! Yeah, let's start raising money by Christmas. That's right, Adrian. I'm going to read you guys' comments. But this is, get comfortable. As Yvette says, get your libations because I've got things, I want to talk about the way I see it. I want to talk about the way I see it. And the only way I can really do that is to share what I've been exposing myself to help you guys understand where I'm coming from when I do the rest of my commentary on this race. Just give me a second to pull this up. It's about 5 minutes long. So if you need a bathroom break, just turn up the volume. If you need to go refresh yourself, turn up the volume because I'm going in. Just a second, family. Let me get to it. Hold on one second. Somebody said they were having issues with the sound. Hold on. Let me mute while I holler at my child. Okay? Hold on. Okay. Very good. Let's get into it.
A shocking new study by the American Civil Liberties Union has found that more than 3,200 people nationwide are serving life terms without parole for nonviolent offenses. Of those prisoners, 80% are behind bars for drug-related crimes. 65% are African American, 18% are white, and 16% are Latino. Evidence of what the ACLU calls extreme racial disparities. The crimes that led to life sentences include stealing gas from a truck, shoplifting, possessing a crack pipe, facilitating a $10 sale of marijuana, and attempting to cash a stolen check.
63% of those serving life without parole for these nonviolent offenses are in federal prisons. Most were sentenced under mandatory minimum laws. The ACLU says keeping nonviolent offenders behind bars for life is costing taxpayers an additional $1.8 billion. And Annette will be joined by the author of the study. But first, this is a clip from a video that features family members of some of the more than 600 prisoners it profiles.
Everything he did was to hurt himself, not others. And it went from 1 year sentence to 2 year sentence to natural life.
My dad will never get out for something so little, natural life. For stealing a $150 jacket. And that $150 jacket got him life in prison.
Here in Louisiana, they use that habitual offender law, 3 strikes, you are automatically getting natural life.
It's like giving them a death sentence because there's no life for a man with his children or his parents or anybody else once they're in there.
judge should have the discretion not to give the life sentence. I mean, that's extreme. You tell that to anybody, that's a little bit too much. That's almost gets to be the point that that's not what the forefathers envisioned, even with the Constitution. That's extreme. That's cruel and unusual punishment to me.
He's a good person. My dad, I mean, he's always, like I said, he's always been there for me, my sister and brother. He's always done his best until he started abusing the drugs.
And a lot of times with Patrick with the drugs, it came down to not being able to find work.
Life sentence is no way to deal with a drug addiction.
My son wasn't a menace to society. He would get his shirt off his back.
And being so tenderhearted and police like that, it just doesn't fit. It's changed him that way, because I noticed he is getting a little colder. I find that he's not believing it. He's not keeping his faith as much. He's like, I'm about ready to give up on this.
Oh, it's been hard. I go down there and see him. I can't hardly stand to leave him, but I know I have to go. It be hard. It be hard.
To tell him what I ate for Thanksgiving, and he couldn't eat it. You know, it's hard. Little things like that.
And my birthday coming up. And those are days I break.
But if this person can go back and be a productive citizen and not commit crimes again, these nonviolent crimes, then why are we keeping him here spending all this money? Because maybe I've done my job, so he should have a parole hearing.
There's too many families that's suffering out here.
Give him a second chance. He's 54 years old now.
I'm looking for things to change.
Because these boys are just getting wasted away in these prisons for no reason.
That's a clip from a video that accompanies the ACLU's new report, A Living Death, Life Without Parole for Nonviolent Offenses. For more, we're joined by its author, Jennifer Turner, human rights researcher with the American Civil Liberties Union. Welcome to Democracy Now! I mean, it is just astounding. A man, the story we just heard, another story, a man walks out of a store with a coat slung over his shoulder, $159. It's life in prison without parole.
Absolutely. These sentences are grotesquely out of proportion of the crimes that they're seeking to punish. And we found that 3,278 people are serving life without the possibility of parole for nonviolent crimes. But these numbers actually underrepresent the true state of extreme sentencing in this country. Those numbers don't account for those who will die in prison because of sentences such as 250 years for a drug sale. It also doesn't account for the many millions of lives ruined by excessive sentencing in this country as well.
And especially the impact of federal mandatory minimum sentences. Could you talk about that and the efforts to try to roll back some of those laws?
Yeah, what we found was that over 80% of these sentences were mandatory, both in the federal system and in the states. They're the direct consequence of laws passed over the 40-year war on drugs and tough on crime policies that included mandatory minimum sentencing laws, habitual offender laws in the states, and they tie judges' hands. And in case after case after case that are reviewed, the judge said from the bench, outraged, would say, I oppose this sentence as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as a judge. I disagree with the sentence in this case, but my hands are tied. And one judge said, when sentencing one man to life without parole for selling tiny quantities of crack over a period of just a couple of weeks, he said, this is a travesty. It's just silly, but I had no choice. What if it can't say no? In fact, I looked at cases where the judges tried to say no, where the judge tried to find a legal loophole, where prosecutors appealed repeatedly. One man was sentenced to 0 time in prison by a Louisiana judge for threatening a cop while handcuffed in the back of a police cruiser. He was drunk, threatened him, was sentenced initially to no time. The prosecutor appealed, the sentence increased to 10 years. Prosecutor appealed again. On the third appeal, it was increased to life without parole as a mandatory sentence because of his priors dating back as much as 20 years earlier.
Thank you, family, for holding on for me. I greatly appreciate you indulging me by listening to that. Now, I want to talk about how people are constantly telling us as the ADOS to get over the fact that Joe Biden is the author of the 94 crime bill. I want to just talk a little bit about how we are shamed and we are dragged for choosing to vote Democratic down ballot for demanding reparations and a Black agenda in exchange for our vote. We're told to forget about the author of the 94 crime bill and Callie's top cop by her own admission, Skamala the Chameleon is what I call her. We are rode hard for just not forgetting it, for not forgiving it, for not letting it go. When I just shared with you that of the prisoners out here, close to 3,300 are in jail for drug addiction or drug sales. But we are supposed to forget about it. Joe Biden, who just kind of was strong-armed one debate to passively apologize for being the author of the 94 crime bill, he took a breath from constantly trying to include the Black senators and people in the House of Representatives, the Black Congress people, who he constantly deflects to as having supported it. All the while, they don't talk about the $2.6 billion that was in that bill that was supposed to come to the communities that never did. So in some instances, it might be wrong to ride the CBC as lanes when they can't get the promises fulfilled to the ADOS. They were promised $2.6 billion. Like I said, to come back to the communities, that never happened. So he finally came up from deflecting on the subject of how he is the author of the crime bill by blaming the CBC, who was in support of the bill, because of the $2.6 billion that they never got for their communities, to say, you know, a lukewarm apology from the debate stage when Donald Trump called him out about it. And so you don't hear this kind of shaming when it comes to white folks in Pennsylvania, where at last count, Trump was up 7 points in Biden's home state. Nobody drags the white folks for still being pissed, clearly, if Trump is up in Biden's state. Nobody's dragging the white folks for being mad about NAFTA. Nobody's dragging the white folks in Michigan whose manufacturing jobs were shipped overseas. They're not told to get over it. So I played that for you to share with you how we can't afford to get over it, because it's still happening. It is still happening. It's just like how hard it is to watch slave movies. We're not looking at it like the Jews examine their Holocaust as something that's in their past and how wealthy they've become from the repair they've received as the descendants of Holocaust survivors, or those who lost their lives during the Holocaust. They're standing in the shoes of. And so their wealth position has changed so much that even Obama gave them $12 million towards a Holocaust we had no role in. Well, we probably had a role in, but none known visibly to us. And they've received, I think last count was something like $233 billion in Israel to shore up their military. And we know they're racist against the Palestinians. They're oppressing the Palestinians. But this country, our tax dollars, have been used to help them with their military, I think to the tune of $233 billion, between giving them money towards their Holocaust and their military and just propping them up at every turn. And yet we are the ones that are shamed and stop being the victim and all this kind of nonsense that we are told because we're fighting for reparations and a Black agenda, because dollars bring dignity in this country, and the color of white in this country is green. Forgive that noise, family. Stand by. Let me close my door. I'm trying to get some air up in here, but they clearly are out here acting a fool until I get a studio, family. It is what it is. Stand by. Okay, hopefully that helps. But yeah, so ADOS gets dragged for standing up for poor ADOS who are trolled by the race soldiers in the communities where much oppression is going on. And so we get dragged because we choose to stand down and let the top of the ticket go to Trump. Because the Democrats whom we've been voting for since 36 FDR, that's 84 years, choose to ignore those of us who have been blue no matter who, Democratic loyalists. And folks are angry with the ADOS. Just forget about it. It sounds like Akon, who said, just forget about slavery is holding you back. They got some nerves. They come here with a wealth position from Africa to our country, identify as us for grants and scholarships to our HBCUs and Ivy League universities, and then want to tell us who are tethered to the bottom of this country that our ancestors built with their lives to get over it, to get in line. Home relationships falling apart. Families and friends alike falling apart at the seams because the ADOS movement has decided that we no longer want to be the mules of the Democratic Party. And so that's one facet of it. You just heard that 65% of these nonviolent offenders, just this group, okay? They didn't include all the other groups for all the other petty crimes where they're doing hundreds of lifetimes of sentences for being Black, because they need Black folks in the new slavery, the private prison industrial complex. And you're talking about Joe Biden. This is what kills me about it all. You want to create private prison industrial complex and then offer lukewarm reform, to fix it 47 years later. So they want to create all these issues that are broken within the Black community and then offer lukewarm solutions for your vote. He's not talking about dismantling private prisons. He's not talking about doing away with qualified immunity. He's talking about $30 million more to the race soldiers and got into a pissing match with Trump over who was more tough on law and order. And so this is the way of the Democrats and why they're in a dead heat with the Republicans. Because the ADOS showed up and showed out at those polls, voting Democratic down ballot. Which brings me to my next point. I don't understand why folks got our movement in their mouth, talking against us for not voting Biden at the top of the ticket, when A, we clearly said we weren't doing that. We've been saying that for a couple of years now. It's not new information. And B, we're delivering you a Democratic Congress. Folks want to peg us with why folks didn't show up to the polls. When we were the ones in all of our spaces pushing to get people to the polls in Obama-style numbers. That's what the ADOS movement has been on. And so folks are choosing this amnesia, benign neglect kind of position when it comes to where the ADOS has always stood. I was voting green at the top in Democratic down ballot prior to this election cycle, before the movement was even formed, because Hillary nor Trump had anything to offer my people to get them up off the bottom, which capitalism requires, but it can't be us anymore. And so for those who sit up here and try to paint a new narrative to disparage the ADOS, shame on you. But we're not paying you no never mind. Like I said, I'm preparing right now, today, before the election has even been decided, to stay on my square on this show to push Democratic down ballot even harder until they cut the check in the trillions over multi-generations. Yeah, that's this show, fighting for reparations and Democratic down ballot, and we don't even know who the president is. But if I've got 2 to 4 years to push the Democratic down ballot strategy, imagine how many more disruptors we'll have. And imagine perhaps, although I'm not very hopeful, the Democrats will finally be running on reparations and a Black agenda, because they clearly are losing voters across all the groups but white men. We have doubled in the ADOS lineage, or at least Blacks, have doubled their support for Trump as far as Black women, and have gone from 13 to 17% for Black men. Hispanics votes are up for Trump, but nobody shames the Latinx community. Now, this is the oxymoron in it all. Okay, family? This is what gets my goat. I can't tell you the number of people in my Facebook feed that came for me for dragging the Democrats, for dragging Biden, for dragging Kamala. They had much to say about why I was just dragging the Democrats. Why aren't you saying anything about Trump? Why aren't you dragging Trump? First of all, Trump just got into politics. He's been at this for 4 years. He is in position because folks were sick and tired of Obama not doing anything for the people after we helped him to win 2 terms. We still waiting for, I ain't waiting, but a lot of ADOS within the lineage are still waiting for Obama to swing for the ADOS. He ain't one of us. He was raised by his white grandparents who descend from slave owners. He is George Bush's cousin. Dick Cheney is in that line too. Dick Cheney is a cousin to the Bushes. They all cousins. And so we didn't know that when we were running out here ecstatic over the fact that someone looked like us with a Harvard Ivy League education. None of us thought to look deeper. Well, I guess some of us did. Those of us that didn't vote for him either term saw through the tricks. And so now that we've awakened to the tricks and aren't falling for them with Kamala, we're being dragged for that. But you don't hear anybody coming for the Latinx community. Yvette did a powerful show on that. Check it out, Breaking Brown. But you don't see anyone coming for the Latinx community. But they'll come for me for dragging the Democrats, whom we've been mules for 84 years, and we're now at George Floyd 846. Why aren't you dragging Trump? I have never voted Republican, and Trump just got here. Why are you voting for Biden is the question, who's been at this 47 years, including as the VP with Obama, and did nothing to change any of what's happening to us today. Hence why we're at George Floyd 846. And you are in denial If you think we just got to George Floyd 846 with Trump in office, this has been going on forever, since we were drug here in chains. So they can come for me and ride me for the last year and a half about dragging Kamala and Joe in the DNC for stealing the primary a second time. Yes. Anytime Bernie's winning 3 states straight and the rest of them are falling behind, and Biden included, then they go to South Carolina, and at the behest of Jim Clyburn, the boomers and the folks of South Carolina go and get him the victory. Then Obama interferes in the election by calling up all the other contenders that are just mini-me's of Joe Biden to fall on their sword and to get behind and endorse Biden. And then all of a sudden the primary ends. Okay, like that is theft. The same way they did it the first time with Hillary. So they are not beyond what Trump is suggesting with this pandemic and trying to, I don't put it past him to be trying to steal the election. I don't. So, like I said, lots of groups are voting for Trump, yet we're the ones that get dragged when we don't come for Trump's throat. But when you ask them, why aren't you dragging the Latinx and the whites who are voting for Trump en masse? Why isn't anyone coming for them the way y'all come for me when I don't drag Trump? Where's the drag session and the shaming session for them? And they just got here. That's the oxymoron of it all. You want to come for ADOS for not dealing with Trump because that's your excuse for not dragging the Latinx community to each of you who I've spoken with this about. Your excuse is we ain't got nothing to do with them. Well, how in the world do the ADOS movement have anything to do with Trump? But we're expected to drag Trump and not give the DNC that work, not hold them to tangibles, not hold them to a reparations in exchange for our vote. We're not supposed to weaponize our vote. And you can bet your bottom dollar these Latinx people are going to get every demand met because of how they're favoring and trending towards Trump, who Biden all of a sudden says we weren't counting on that electorate to win. So you're counting on the ADOS to win while not offering us a thing. Their package is more robust than the ADOS, Lift Every Voice but ADOS African-American plan. Their platform over there at Joe Biden's website is full of what he's going to do in the first 1 to 100 days for the Latinx community. Their platform is not full of minorities. I read the African-American Lift Every Voice but ADOS plan. Minority is mentioned 30 times, to people of color 22 times. That's not their platform. That's not the Caribbean platform. That's not the African diaspora plan. That's not the Indian Asian plan. While Kamala sits up here and tells you she ain't doing nothing specifically for ADOS while offering H-1B visas to her ilk, East Indian Brahmin caste. She's white from where she comes from. The color of white is green. We would be the Dalits, the untouchables. But no shaming from anyone. I don't hear the pundits on the major corporate news networks dragging the Latinx. He just deflects to, I wasn't counting on their vote. How convenient. And so this is the challenge for the ADOS, is to stay strong through this kind of criticism from your own kind. Everybody can't go. But we are on our squares, and you should be extremely proud of how you showed up and out with the Democratic down ballot strategy this election cycle. Know that I've read in different spaces where white folks were modeling their Democratic down ballot strategy after ours. They were watching what we were doing. The ones who are also displeased with Trump and the Republicans being the only thing on the Democratic platform, the only thing they were running on. Let me go back to my notes before I get into story time to make sure I covered all my bases about the points I wanted to make. Thank you guys for joining the live and for hanging in there with me as I share about the way I see it. Yes, this has been the highest voter turnout since 1900. Now, that would generally mean that it would lean towards the Democrats, but it's not. So perhaps 4 years of Russiagate and running opposition to Donald Trump as the boogeyman, has cost them votes. That's what they chose to do over these last 4 years, as if that worked the last election cycle. And yes, I want to stress that what we're suggesting, there will be casualties. We just won't be the only one. Democratic down ballot, when you're dealing with Republicans, Democratic down ballot, there will be casualties. But when do you suggest we rise up as a people and demand what we're owed? When do you suggest that? When we're living in shanties? Because out here in LA, these racist immigrants and racist white folks just voted down Prop 16 for affirmative action. That was taken away from Ward Connolly back in 96. We have gone from 16 to 6% down here. And although we are 44% of the degreed, we are only 6% of the private sector. So this kind of stuff fails when you put it in the hands of the Asians and the Latinas, the Hispanics down here, and the white folks. It went to a vote and it failed. We're sitting up here. Let me see if I can find that data. Family, just give me a second to look up. I take screenshots. I think we're like at 5%. Is this it? Okay. I can't readily put my hands on that data, and I don't want to delay the show. But if my understanding, if I can recall from the information I shared, let me see if it's on the camera, family. Maybe it's there. Just a second. I don't want to misquote. Good Lord, I can't. I hate when I can't find the data. Let's see here. Oh, maybe it's under here. Downloads. I thought for sure I downloaded this thing. Oh, family, forgive me. I don't see it in my notes readily. Oh, God, that sucks. I will quote that on the show Sunday. I will make it a point to show you where we stand in terms of college entry down here in LA. And so, yes, they're coming to our country. They're eating off the table that we are the legs of. Okay? That is what is happening to the ADOS all over the country. The immigrants, the Democrats are using the immigrants to replace us. So they never have to give us the reparations. If they win the top of that ticket, they're opening the borders. Last number I heard was 22 million. That's double the number I've been citing. giving 22 million immigrants a pathway to citizenship before making us American. That's what the Democrats are intending to do. And so they're trying to replace our vote so they never need it. While Biden lies and says he wasn't counting on the Latinx vote. Yes, he was. He was counting on all the immigrants' votes. That's why they've got distinct plans on his platform for that reason. Let me get back to my notes. So yes, I don't know when people are suggesting that we actually stand up and demand tangibles, reparations, and a Black agenda in exchange for our vote. This is our square. We're not budging from it. Yes, there will be casualties. We just won't be the only ones. Now, 72% of the nation was in support of Medicare for all. Biden couldn't even pretend to be for Medicare because we saw where that got Kamala, who was waffling on every issue. And this is another reason why they're in a dead heat. Because the people said they want Medicare for all. That would have at least helped ADOS to have the health care they need to not be dying in record numbers from the COVID. I've shared in the past about my nephew who caught the COVID right before his 31st birthday. Those shots of remdesivir were $5,000 a pop. He was in the hospital for a week. They administered that 5 of those days. That's $25,000. So when you don't have health care and you can't afford to live outside of environmentally racist neighborhoods and tenement housing, you're told to go home to recover, or go home and don't return until you can no longer breathe. So people were clearly, Bernie was not my pick, but I would have voted for Bernie, especially if he would have ran a Nina Turner on the ticket with him. I'd have voted for that because at least ADOS would have been included in that health care. And about 16% of us would have had our student loan debt erased. But then, in walks the Democrats, plotting and scheming to steal the primary from Bernie a second time. You see, they don't care if Trump wins. Trump is their boy. This is all political theater. All this back and forth and fighting like, I can't even call them fighting like children. I've seen children behave better than these two did on the debate stage. But they got it good either way. Whether Biden wins or not, his millions are protected. Everybody in Congress is protected. Maxine Waters, Joe Collins, who was running on the Republican ticket, exposed in a commercial that went viral, she living in a $6 million house. They're good. And so the nation is begging for this president in Bernie, and they decided, Obama said it prior to doing it, I'm not going to allow Bernie anywhere close. So the Democrats already won when they defeated Bernie. They don't really need the top of this ticket. It's just political theater. Okay, now they're talking about election fraud. Like I said earlier, I don't put it past the Democrats. Now this is a rumor. This was in my inbox. An election fraud update. I've not vetted this information, but it got my attention because I know what they've done to 2 primaries. I know that the Democrats point fingers at the Republicans for suppressing the vote. But we've all experienced them the last 2 election cycles in action, suppressing the votes and making sure they get who they want at the top of the ticket. If you've been following for a long time and you know the term watch the water, you probably understood it to mean the Three Gorges Dam, but it was never referring to that. The watch the water intel refers to the watermark on the official election ballots. The original ballots are also registered on a QFS blockchain to prevent fraud. 12 states were targeted. The National Guard has been deployed to 12 states: Alabama, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Texas, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Washington, Virginia, Delaware, Illinois, and Kentucky. And they are now counting the official ballots. The Dems fell right into the trap of this sting operation. And Trump has it all. Fraud will be exposed for the world to see. And isn't it fancy how the amazing Justice Amy was confirmed right before the election so that she can rightfully take care of the business of election fraud? Oh, and this is only the beginning of the epic times that lay ahead. So did Trump win by a landslide? You will soon see that he did. We shall see. That's a little bit of intel from someone who sent me that. I don't know. I've not vetted it. I really don't know how true it is, but like I said, I don't put anything past the Democrats. Okay, family, with that said, that's the way I see it segment. I'll get to your chats after I do our story time. We're close to the end of this book, Prejudential by Margaret Kimberly, Black America and the Presidents. It goes all the way through into Trump. And so I've been having a great time reading it to you. I'm in a debate over whether or not to do the book club series, because it seems like whenever I come up with a date, here comes Yvette with a date, and it's a lot of reading. So I may just leave that to her. That's something that she does and manages so seamlessly. I'm still in prayer about it. And I'm leaning towards, getting rid of this segment or continuing to read little small things to you, okay? Like this book, small, short, succinct chapters to help us understand our history so we don't repeat it. Okay, family? Tonight, let's get into it. We've got Jimmy Carter. We've got Ronald Reagan, 77 to 81. Now, I want to quickly, if I can get to it quickly. I want to set the stage for what was going on during that time. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, let's get into it. So in 65, the Voting Rights Act allows the federal government to oversee election processes in states where rights are restricted. Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale found the Black Panther Party for self-defense with its focus on education, voting, safety, and full employment. That was in 66, the year I was born. 69, Nixon's Office of Minority Business Enterprise supports and assists Black-owned businesses. 73, a federal judge creates one of the first mandated racial quotas for the Bridgeport, Connecticut Police Department. 80, there are almost 27 million Black people living in the United States. Black men earn 56 cents for every dollar earned by a white man. Far less now. 86, after significant pressure from the Black public Congress, after significant pressure from the Black public, Congress overrides President Reagan's veto of the Anti-Apartheid Act, divesting from South Africa. Key sentence there, or fraction of a sentence, after significant pressure from the Black public. We need all hands on deck in this fight for reparations, which is for a debt that is owed in the trillions over multi-generations for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives. So let's get into it. Jimmy Carter, 77 to 81. He won the presidency in 76 with more than 90% of the black vote. This overwhelming degree of support came about despite the fact that Carter made blatant appeals to white racism during the presidential primaries, including his statement that, quote, I see nothing wrong with ethnic purity being maintained, except, me speaking, when it comes to the ADOS. Everybody else gets to identify based on their ethnicity, but ADOS does not. They like to flatten blackness in this country to mask our failures by the immigrants that they allow set-asides and entitlements to climb right over ADOS, whose ancestors built this country with their lives. I would not force racial integration of a neighborhood by government action, close quote. Carter proved that the Democrats, having now become the Black People's Party, could count on that support regardless of what they said or did. Hello, Joe Biden. If you vote for Trump, you ain't black. They're still using the same tactics. Carter ran as a candidate of the New South, meaning that he wasn't an overt racist like George Wallace in his ilk. That would be Biden. He's a covert racist. Kamala, covert racist. And let's understand the difference between racist and prejudice. ADOS can't be racist. We don't have enough power and money to be racist. You're a racist when you're in a financial position to oppress a group of people. That would not be ADOS. We have no power. We have no money. We have no wealth. He could not have become the governor of Georgia without black voter support, but he was far more conservative than those constituents. Even a cursory examination of his campaign statements indicated that he was no friend of policies that black voters favored. Sounds like Biden. Let's give $30 million more to the race soldiers, get into a pissing match with Trump over who is more tough on law and order, and select Cali's top cop, Kamala the Chameleon, as your running mate in an era of defund the police and George Floyd 846. Carter was in fact a strong advocate of neoliberalism and opposed the traditional black political agenda. Sounds familiar, right? The more things stay the same, family, the more things stay the same. Carter had a typical childhood for a white rural Georgian. He hunted and fished with black playmates, but they attended segregated schools and churches. He was cared for by black women who were paid only $1 per week for their services. That background was not conducive to thinking of black people as equals who had rights that ought to be respected. Hence our fight for reparations and a black agenda in exchange for our vote. Because dollars bring dignity. The black political agenda was clear, but Carter felt no need to advocate for the people he needed in order to win. Neither has Biden. Nothing will fundamentally change. Neither has Kamala. I'm not doing anything specifically for you on the campaign trail. Was fourth during her presidential run in her own state. Full employment legislation is an example of how the conundrum played out in the 76 campaign. The Congressional Black Caucus first proposed full employment legislation in 1971. We need to look at what the CBC has actually conjured up in the way of legislation and bills that they've gotten passed in the House but can't get passed in the Senate. It might help to shape our critique of the CBC, make it more refined, instead of just speaking from an emotional space because we don't see their efforts out here on the ground. I think that would be a good exercise for the ADOS and the other grassroots movements. The Humphrey-Hawkins Full Employment Act was proposed in '77, co-sponsored by caucus member Augustus Hawkins and Minnesota Senator Hubert Humphrey. The bill was originally envisioned as an effort to force the federal government to use its spending authority to create jobs. Carter ignored the centerpiece of Black politics until he ran into trouble with his statements about ethnic purity, including that, quote, the government ought not to take as a major purpose the intrusion of alien groups into a neighborhood simply to establish their intrusion, close quote. The uproar over Black intrusion in alien groups forced Carter, then governor of Georgia, to give something to his critics. After enduring days of uproar, once the ethnic purity statement was dug up from the 16th paragraph of a New York Daily News interview, he gave mild support to Humphrey Hawkins. Once in office, he did little to help the legislation, which was finally passed and signed into law by Carter in 1978. By that time, it was identified as race-specific. Carter used the fear of inflation to put it on the legislative back burner. Amendments made the act largely symbolic. It would not go into effect unless the rate of inflation was 3% in '83 and 0% in '88. The end result was a bill that would never be acted upon. Despite an endorsement from Martin Luther King Sr., when the ethnic purity remark damaged his '76 presidential prospects, in '79, Carter declared himself neutral on making Martin Luther King's birthday a national holiday. They'll use us up, won't they, family? Not anymore, ADOS. They'll never see the top of the ticket if I've got anything to say or do about it. I don't want a Republican Congress. We need a Democratic Congress to protect the over 42% of ADOS since COVID, who rely on government assistance by design of institutional systemic racism. So we can only avoid the top of the ticket. We must show up in record numbers to deliver a Democratic Congress, especially if we are to ever get reparations. Nobody gets to be politically lazy when you're ADOS. We need all hands on deck. The vote lost to a measure that would have made it a Sunday celebration and hence not a paid federal holiday. It fell to Carter's successor, Ronald Reagan, to make King's birthday a federal holiday. See, I don't care about stuff like this as much. It's nice to have it, but I prefer that they cut our checks in the trillions over multi-generations. All this tearing down of Confederate statues could actually work against us. These are constant reminders of their racism and oppression against us. If that goes away, it helps them to be comfortable until they hear the ethnicity, American descendants of chattel slavery, and our steady drumbeat for reparations. We make them very uncomfortable when we self-identify as who we truly are and unflatten blackness so we can be seen. The Republican Southern strategy was thrown off course temporarily because Jimmy Carter was a white Southerner. The transformation of the white South from Democrat to Republican was not yet complete. And the prospect of seeing one of their own in the office directed enough white Southern voters to Carter to temporarily interrupt the Republican effort. Ultimately, the Iranian hostage crisis and a lackluster debate performance against Ronald Reagan sealed Carter's fate in his re-election campaign. His administration was yet another low point for Black people who had again rallied around someone who did little for them. Carter appointed more Black people to the federal judiciary and kept some minority set-aside programs to ensure that the government continued to employ Black people. But overall, the level of support he received was not commensurate with good outcomes for Black people. He was succeeded by a man who truly had a mandate to turn back the clock and who continued the long decline of Black political life in the modern era. Ronald Reagan. He conducted his 1980 presidential campaign with unconcealed racist sentiments. This political strategy was not a new one for him. He had been making overt appeals to white racism ever since his first days as a politician in California, where he ran for governor in '66. Reagan denounced the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the '65 Voting Rights Act as humiliating to the South. During his gubernatorial campaign, he was in favor of Prop 14, which made housing discrimination legal. He said that the proposition was important in, quote, upholding the right of a man to dispose of his property or not dispose of it as he sees fit. Even though 2 years later he criticized the prop as not a good measure, his previous words show the degree to which he pandered to racist voters. Sounds like Joe Biden. It seemed odd at first for Reagan's presidential campaign kickoff to take place in Mississippi. His home state was Illinois, and he was governor of California. Why Philadelphia, Mississippi? The rationale was obvious and cynical. Why Philadelphia, Mississippi? The rationale was obvious and cynical. Philadelphia was infamous as a location where three men, James Chaney, Michael Schwerner, and Andrew Goodman, were killed during the Freedom Summer, a 1964 effort to register Black voters. Reagan didn't choose a location by throwing darts at a map. He not only went to a place famous for its role in the white supremacist terror that struck at the heart of the liberation movement, but he also spoke there of his support for states' rights, the moniker of reaction and racist defiance. Those words were the clarion call of the Dixiecrats and the dead-ender segregationists who fought against the tide of a new movement. Reagan's words in Mississippi were followed by more unconcealed appeals to white grievance. He told the story of a woman dubbed the Welfare Queen by the Chicago Tribune. She was a con artist who used various aliases to fraudulently collect $8,000 in benefits. The amount grew with each telling, and she soon was accused of stealing more than $150,000. Reagan also recounted the story of a strapping young buck who used food stamps to buy T-bone steaks and other gourmet foods. He may as well have said the fictitious man was Black. Buck is an anachronistic but colorful word with the same connotation. Isn't it in fact true that white corporate America are the biggest welfare queens and kings known to the entire welfare system? Don't they capitalize profits and socialize losses? Reagan worked the Southern strategy better than Nixon or Carter could ever have dreamed of doing. He began an attack on affirmative action programs, turning the Civil Rights Division into a tool for ending set-asides and other remedies for discriminatory outcomes. The goal of his domestic policy was to appease the people who became known as Reagan Democrats, white working-class voters who crossed their traditional party lines to vote for Reagan. As one study indicated, they were united by distaste for blacks. Quote, blacks constitute the explanation for their vulnerability and for almost everything that has gone wrong in their lives. Not being black is what constitutes being middle class. Not living with blacks is what makes a neighborhood a decent place to live. Close quote. Every aspect of the federal government was used to turn back the clock to the days when segregation was perfectly legal. Reagan appointed William Rehnquist as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. As a SCOTUS clerk in 1953, Rehnquist had opined that Plessy was right and should be affirmed. The administration continued to go the extra mile in making points for white racism. Reagan created a new political language, appropriating the words of his adversaries and turning their ideas against them. Reaganites would quote Martin Luther King as they made plans to reduce or end civil rights regulations. They claimed to want a colorblind society. They didn't want the legal enforcement that would bring this about, so they obscured the conversation with confusion. They used the word revolution, a Reagan revolution, to describe a wholesale change in how government had worked since the days of Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. A conservative movement emerged that claimed to care for those at the bottom and referred to the help they needed as a harmful dependency. Reminds me of how Kamala can cite all the social ills as fluently as if she had lived each and every one of them, and in the same breath tell you she's not doing anything specifically for the ADOS. Reagan's racist political playbook led him to victory in 2 landslide elections. In 1988, his vice president, George H.W. Bush, followed the playbook even more closely. Bush went on to victory and continued the tradition of racist infamy that his former boss had maintained. Black Americans watched as the gains they had made in the 60s eroded one by one. The political trajectory of the country had changed for good, and even future Democratic presidents sounded more like Reagan than like Lyndon Johnson. On Sunday, we're headed into the 1990s to the 2019 modern day. And we're going to deal with the first George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton. Sunday at 6 o'clock. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat, and I'll pray us out. Like I said, they create the war on drugs and then offer the solution of the 94 crime bill to incarcerate nonviolent offenders en masse for the new slavery in the private prisons. And all we're left with is dying disproportionately from COVID, dying from government-sanctioned executions, dying in the private prison industrial complex, the preschool to prison pipeline, the miseducation, the lack of home ownership, the lack of business ownership. As you heard in my reading tonight and all the nights prior in the archives, this has been the setup all along to make us the permanent undercountry our ancestors built with their lives. In walks the ADOS movement. Stay on your square, family. No matter how unpopular, no matter how many friends and family members you have to lose, we've got a people to save. We are of our ancestors who persisted until Lincoln gave us our emancipation, who persisted until Lyndon Johnson gave us our civil rights. It is on us to persist, to close the egregious $100 trillion or more racial wealth gap so that our children have a fighting chance in the country their ancestors built with their lives. It is on us to lean in. We can't afford to give in. We can't afford to give up. We can't afford to give out. Our whole entire lineage is counting on us. Let's see what you guys have got to say here. I'm scrolling up. I'm just reading the pertinent comments tonight, family. Lafar Ward says, fam, this is more than enough of why we are owed. They take our reparations for bribes against humanity. Tell it, Angela Nirvana. Thank you. Yes, and Lafar shared a link, so please check that out. Jumping down. Maurice Carlisle said that Tamara Johnson-Shealey's numbers was very, very good for a first-time campaign for the Senate. I am properly impressed as well, Maurice. Welcome to the live. Media Engagement Solutions, thank you for joining the live. We in for Tamara for Georgia ran a beast of a campaign for U.S. Senate. Yes, she did, family. So proud of that sister. We will not leave her midstream. We will not leave her midstream if she chooses to run again. Thank you, Adrian, for joining the live. Just going to the pertinent comments, family, so that Eric Brown says nothing is lost. Building blocks, step by step. You better know it, family. Okay, Adrian says, Tamara, they will offer you big money and a position for your support of Warnock. Just saying. I will relay that to her, Adrian, or you can inbox her and let her know that. That's good information, but she's on her square. She's not, I don't believe she's going to sell out the ADOS, who sadly was not as empathetic towards her as she has been to the movement. Some, not all. Quite a few of us, like I said, gave to the PAC and made dials for her. You don't have to live in the state of Georgia to help her get elected. But far too many did not. And so we're hopeful to change that the next time around. We're prayerful to get another time around. Eric Brown says, yes, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Have to diversify and form alliances. Absolutely. I believe in working with other grassroots organizations. Jump down too far. Just a second, family. Tansy says, stand in your square, Tamara. Do them politics. Tribe up. Yes. Tansy also said your real family was behind you. That's real talk. You know, the beauty of this movement is that we have found our tribe, right? Like if other people divorce us with respect of our friendships and family, I got the ADOS all over the country to lean on. So grateful to have found my tribe. Just felt like I was drowning before I found you guys. Actually, Yale says the goal is pure reparations for ADOS in the trillions over multi-generations. We're owed $24 trillion on the low end. Oh, ADOS truth. We love you, black and strong, fam. Thank you. York 2700, welcome to the live. Peace and blessings, Sister Nirvana. I got you on the string. Thank you so much. We're going to need all of our brothers. We love our brothers. Trey X, welcome to the live. York 2700, I'm a Virgo. And my name is Angela Nirvana. Yeah, we cannot forget about what happened in 94. We can't forget about what happened in 1619 or prior to that. Because anger gets shit done. Right? Donna, Michelle, I thank you for joining the live. P. Burley, thank you for joining the live. Margaret McCall says, Sister Angela, make sure you vet every candidate before you support them as someone ADOS backs. Just because they mention ADOS does not mean they don't have another agenda. You're very right about that. Everybody will be vetted very, very closely. But I know Sister Tamara was ADOS strong. I've known her long before we even started forming our inaugural conference. So, but you're right. Everybody will be vetted. We're not getting behind. I'm with the Equity Advocates PAC. So a lot of that will be happening with the Equity Advocates PAC. So I don't, Yvette is not really on endorsing candidates. So we changed the name of the PAC from Friends of ADOS to Equity Advocates PAC so that we could get our people elected into the Congress, which is where we need them to get these reparations. Support the PAC, Equity, advpac.com. Y'all need to start pouring money into that right now because it's designed to give people like Tamara, who were stranded midstream, it's designed to give her money as well as run ads for her. Robin Felix, my love, thank you for joining the live. Eric says, always stay hopeful. It keeps you motivated. It's a marathon. Absolutely. Reparations is a marathon, not a sprint. I was sharing with someone about who was being cynical. You see, lots of people like to be cynical about reparations and want to constantly claim it's never going to happen. Just admit that you're politically lazy and don't want to do the heavy lifting to make this happen. But I told him that thank God he wasn't amongst the ancestors one of the ancestors that insisted on our emancipation. Do you know how many years it took for the ancestors to persist, for us to be emancipated before it actually occurred? They didn't just flee slavery and storm the Union camps and get the emancipation the day they stole from slavery. Do you know how many years it took for Lyndon B. Johnson to sign on our civil rights? Martin Luther King just didn't show up and have a meeting with Lyndon B. Johnson and he signed our civil rights into legislation, into law, the day he had the meeting. The same is true for reparations. We have got to lean in and do this work so it can come into fruition. Because politicians respond to pressure, not applause. Thank you, Yvette Carnell, for that. And the pressure is to weaponize the only commodity we've got as a wealthless group, whose ancestors built all the wealth in this country that everybody eats from that table that we are the legs of, is our vote. We, ADOS, was instrumental in making this a dead heat right now, because we've been on our square along with the rest of the new black media. Now, what I'm not pleased about is that our message was crowded out by some of the other grassroots organizations to not show to the polls at all. And that was in opposition to what the ADOS movement has been pushing. We wanted folks to show up in Obama-style numbers so that we can have a Democratic Congress. Now the Republicans seem to have a majority. We lost seats in the Senate, and now they seem to have a majority. So this is why it's important for us grassroots organizations to talk to each other so all of our shows can get all of our followers on the same page. So yes, it's a marathon, not a sprint, to your point, Eric. Your princess, welcome to the live, my love. We conflate the words prejudice with races. Yes, we do. And there's a big difference. Read for one, Chiefer, vote for Trump. No, neither of them. We're voting for the candidate that is offering reparations and a black agenda in exchange for our vote. Otherwise, we're Democratic down ballot, let the chips fall where they may, because no matter who's in office, ADOS still has a ton of work to do. Welcome to the live, Mike Michelson. Welcome to the live, Hawk Sway. And with that said, family, we're at an hour 46. Let me pray us out. And yeah, I'll see you guys on Sunday at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Oh, it may not be 6, actually. I had to look at the times for my work groups down here. We're fighting for our ethnicity so we can unflatten blackness down here. And we're still fighting to get people on the commission for the reparations study here in California. And now we've got to go back to the drawing board to see how we can prevail on Prop 16, how we can reintroduce it, how we can maybe get the governor's signature and not depend on the white supremacists upon the immigrant class and the whites down here. We got to find another way around that to get the affirmative action back for our people, our select ADOS people, who are now, like I said, 6% in all of Southern California. And with that said, family, let me pray over you that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOS and its allies are, God truly is, family, because guess what? You are what? The face of God. You're the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Until Sunday, family, you go out in here in these streets and you act like you know who you are, and you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening and next couple of days. I love you, Black. I love you, strong. Ciao for now, family. Peace. Share, share, share.